Hey everybody, JJ here, back again with another Zoom networking presentation. It is a Wednesday, middle of the week, and it's Valentine's Day. So we've got two absolutely wonderful ladies here with us to share Valentine's Day and to share some wealth and gold nuggets. Um, you know, One of the biggest gifts we have through our journey through real estate is meeting people that are phenomenal, can impact our business. There's Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins. There's people of such great notoriety out there that the best way that we can improve our business is to try and meet other people and hear what they can possibly share with us that could impact the success of our business. The two ladies speaking with us today are nationally, if not internationally, renowned in their field of expertise, which is multifamily. I've had the pleasure to speak with them and a little bit more, quiet, two-on-one, although we're in different states, kind of a thing. And I couldn't be more impressed. I'd like to introduce you to today's guest speakers, Jen and Stacy Conkey. How are you girls?
Fantastic.
Awesome. We are awesome, JJ. Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Again, like I've heard so much about you, and I know my community is going to enjoy hearing from you, and everybody that's going to be able to tune into this later on YouTube. We've got 3,000 subscribers and 4,000 in my group. For those that aren't aware of who you are, what you do, and all this stuff, where are you located?
We are in Orlando, Florida now.
Uh-huh.
It'll be 3 years in June, but we were in San Diego. We were in San Diego for a while. And well, then the state of California wanted us to write them a check for taxes for all the cash flow. And we decided to buy a motel instead. So we moved to Florida to not avoid taxes, but to take that money and put it to work in an asset that will pay us instead of paying Newsom the money. So
That's
not that we're against California, we're just against paying a lot of taxes. We'd rather put that money into an asset. So that's what took us to Florida. We're in the Orlando area, in between Orlando and Tampa specifically.
cool. Well, I might be your neighbor in the future.
Yeah, you might be.
To see what
There's a lot of
opportunity
us here.
comes my way. Um, we've got connected through real estate investment. I started as a student. I'm an investor. I'm a landlord. But I'm wanting to learn to build my portfolio. And when we get started as students, most groups say, "Well, you want to rehab and then keep a couple of those as a buy and hold." No, wholesale. Then rehab a couple, and then eventually, maybe after many, many years, you're going to do multifamily. You can work yourself up to that. And I think, the last couple of years I've been listening to more and more people, and the wait doesn't have to be that long. People can move into that a little bit faster. And so that's what your field of expertise is. But before we talk about multifamily, I wanted to get a little feel for, how you got started. You know,
Mm.
um, we all have a path generally when we get to the point where we're making money. From some of us are fortunate in our teens to then in our 20s. We're making that transition from breaking out of the parents' house and living on our own. From your teens in your 20s, were you driving at 16, voting at 18, drinking at 21, sometimes drinking at 18. But
What are you talking about, JJ?
yeah, no, not me. But was real estate on the horizon for you? Was it something you were aware of? Was a family member involved? If it came later, what were you doing through your teens into your 20s?
Yeah, I love that. That's a good question. I've never been asked that question.
That was
That's going to
before.
definitely expose some character. So for me in my teens, I was a good girl until I was about 13 and met some friends that were really fun. I'll just leave it at that. We did a lot of really fun things, tested a lot of boundaries. Real estate was not on my list, but I did have my dad constantly telling me, whatever you do, buy land, buy real estate, get into real estate and get into the stock market.
That's good.
So throughout my, teenage years, I knew that that's kind of like in the background, but quite honestly, I always knew I was an entrepreneur. When I was 10 years old, Doritos changed my life. That's the real story. I lived with my mom, who was a single mom, and I lived in Folsom before it was this mega awesome place. It was actually a ghetto when I grew up in it, next to the prison.
Okay.
My mom was a single mom, doing her best. And one day I was walking home from school and I hadn't eaten my Doritos that were in my backpack from lunch. And I pulled them out. And as I'm getting ready to open them, there's these teenage kids from the Casa Robles High School on the corner that said, "Hey, little girl." Psst. And I was like, "What?" It smelled funny. They're like, "Give you $5 for that bag of Doritos." And I was like, $5. This was 1984. I'm aging
Yeah.
myself. This is 1984. And I was like, $5 for this bag of Doritos that, by the way, I got from my mom's cabinet. Done. So I handed it to him. He handed me the $5 and I started doing the math. I'll carry the one. There's 10 more of these at home. And I was like, cool. They were obviously stoned. The next day I come back and I've got all the frickin' chips and I'm selling them out like hotcakes. And then I'm going back to the store and I created an entire business model selling chips to stoners at least 3 times a week on my way home from school. So I always had that entrepreneurial concept of this is what I want to do. Now, flip side, by the time I was 10 and a half-ish, I lived with my dad. And when I went to my dad's, he was upper middle class, making a lot of money. He's working in aerospace. Like today, to this very day, he's the undersecretary, or he's the consultant to the undersecretary of war, does a whole bunch of super classified stuff that I'm not even allowed to know about, but I like to get him as drunk as I possibly can and ask him questions. His whole thing was like, Jen, you've got to make sure that you get into real estate. And, the goal is you just got to get a 6-figure job. You got to make more money than I do. And you got to go to college. You absolutely have to go to college. That was a rule in his house. So I had, one side of the tracks that I grew up on until I was 10. And then the other side of the tracks that I grew up until I finally moved out when I was 17. For me, all of that taught me that I really do have an entrepreneurial spirit. And
Yeah.
I've always wanted more than just to be in some cubicle or some box. Yet that's where I freaking ended up. I worked in corporate America for 22 years, climbing the corporate ladder while doing real estate on the side by myself for 12 years. And I always wished that I had a community of people that I could say, hey, this is jacked up, or I need to talk to this contractor, because I started with flips and wholesaling. Then I moved into plexes and I was trying to do the buy and hold thing. As I'm doing this, I'm always trying to do value add. It's in my backyard in California. I wasn't making much profit. My dad at the time decided to get in there with me, the whole DIY approach. After 7 months, we made $1,500 on my first property. It was gross. So I was sort of like burning out from all of that, but I still did it for 12 years. And then I meet Stacy in 2015, and she's the queen of apartments. Like she at the time, I didn't even know it because we met online. And she was explaining to me how she had a course and she had monetized it and she was coaching people. She'd been coaching people since like 2010. And I was like, man, I got to date this broad more. I want to know how to do this. And so I'll let you tell your side of it. But ultimately, by the time I met Stacy, she was doing JV apartments and teaching people how to do it. And I wanted to know more.
So I had a question for Stacy, and my question was going to be, so Stacy, when Jen met you, you're like already rocking and rolling. You already, doing the deal, I'll just say. But how did you start? I mean, was mom an agent? Was dad a contractor? Was real estate on the horizon for you in your teens and your 20s? Or did you go a different path? And what was your journey from that time period, say 16 to 26 or whatever it happened to be?
So I had no idea real estate investing was even a thing. I'd never heard of it, was completely unaware. And I did the normal thing. You went to college, got a degree, went and got my CPA license, got a job. I was working in corporate America. And my boss I was working on getting my MBA. My boss at the time saw that I was trying to improve myself. I was going to Toastmasters because I was dead terrified of speaking, like absolutely terrified to death. Anyway, so he invited me to go to Tony Robbins with him. And I was like, oh, no, I mean, I had every reason not to go. And he just wasn't standing for it. Like he kept bashing all my reasons. I was like, oh, it's quarter end. We're a public company. I got to report. He's like, you have an accounting staff. Well, I can't afford to fly. I'll pay for your flight. Damn it. I can't afford the hotel. I'll pay for your hotel. Anyway, so he basically sort of dragged me to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within event. And it just completely changed my life. One of the exercises we went through showed me that I was just, my path and what I was meant to do in the world was wildly different than the path I was on. And not that I knew it, I didn't even know what that meant at the time. All I knew was I am not on the right path for my life. So anyway, the one thing led to another. I ended up reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that was the first exposure I had to real estate investing as like a rental property. And I was like, oh, that seems very logical. I like logic. I like debits and credits, things that make sense and balance. And I thought cash flow was cool. And so from there, I was just intrigued and wanted to learn more. And so I invested in my education, and it wasn't very good, but I made the investment, started learning. And I lived in Sacramento.
Whoa. You just breezed over the education thing.
Okay, it was complete dog
okay.
poo. It was awful. It was really awful. I spent $40,000 for total crap, basically. It was super high. And if anyone's ever been in an education program like this, then you know what I'm talking about. It was very high level. It like breezed over all of the subjects. But I was like going for it. I was not someone paying $40,000 to just learn information. I was paying, just like I did for college, to get knowledge so that I could do this thing right and make a career out of it. And when I went to implement, it was missing like it was like A, B, Y, Z. It was missing everything in between. So I had a really hard journey in the beginning, and it was very frustrating. And I remember as I was going through and trying to get the ball rolling, I was like, you know what? If I ever figure this out, and I was not even sure that I would at that point, but if I ever figure this out, I'm going to go back and make sure that the next generation of people that are trying to do this do not have this experience, because they will quit and they will give up. I was just motivated enough to keep going. Somehow I look back and like, I don't even know. I can't believe I didn't quit. It was so hard.
Now,
but it was just,
let me ask you,
about helping.
when you got started, were you starting first with single family or rehabbing, wholesaling? Or, I mean, multifamily is the wheelhouse for what you two do now. So before you met Jen, had you already gotten to multifamily by that time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The first time I created a course in multifamily was 2010. So I've been doing it for a long time. When I lived in Sacramento, so California, which is not an easy place to be an investor at all, but especially when you're new and you don't even have capital. So I ended up learning about the idea of remote investing, thankfully, very early. And so I started investing remotely right away. And my first deal was a fix and flip. And then I ended up with a duplex fixer upper in Illinois. And so I ended up in like doing some plexes and doing new construction. I kind of did a little bit of everything, wholesaling, and all over the US. So my experience is fairly broad. My introduction to multifamily came when I started a property management company in Detroit in 2004. And that's where I was actually introduced to apartment investing and started learning about it from the property management standpoint. And that's how I ended up learning it. And Jen and I have done every different kind of real estate together. It's just that, especially when you get into economic times where the interest rates are going up, flipping it can be very dangerous. Yep. It can be very dangerous financially. And we went through 2008. So we know what that's like, and we're a little more conservative, and we just kind of dropped everything else and focused only on multifamily. That's part of our building our cash flow anyway, which is kind of where we were at in life, what we wanted.
Okay, when we first got together, JJ, we had been doing multifamily, and I wanted to get into apartments, and I knew she was doing joint venture on smaller apartments and teaching people that. But there was just something about these large syndication fees that had this sexy allure to me. And I was like, I want to go do that. And went through two commercial trainings in apartments. And, one of them being RE mentor, then learning from Dave Lindahl. We're sold. As soon as they talked about acquisition fees and all of that, I was like, let's go and drop 40K. Let's do the thing. That was a while ago. That was at least 7 or 8 years. It was about 8 years ago. And so learning about syndication, but then going to implement it and, SEC attorney, PPM, costly, the cash flow portal, all these things. I was like, oh my God. So after trying to implement it for a few months, we said, you know what? I asked a question of how could we do this the way you do it, but still get acquisition fees? Like, is that possible?
Let me ask you something, because multifamily is new to me. I haven't crossed that threshold yet. We've got some new investors on the call with us right now. We're going to have new people on YouTube watching down the line. What is an acquisition fee?
So an acquisition fee, I'm going to back up just a little bit because you just reminded me of something that's kind of important based on some people being newer. Let me lay a little bit of foundation. So when you're going into multifamily, and when I say multifamily right now, I'm referring to five or more units, apartment buildings.
Mhm.
You get your bank, you get your loan from the bank, but there's a gap, right? The bank's going to give you 70%. You need to have your 30% down payment and
Mhm.
closing costs, all those things. When you get into apartments, if you don't have all that capital yourself, and a lot of people come into it having some capital, but not necessarily enough to close on an apartment building by themselves. So your options are you can either joint venture, meaning you're going to get together with a couple of other people, you're going to combine your resources and your time, you're going to do the deal together. And that's called a joint venture. And it's absolutely ideal when it's not a huge amount of money you need to raise, and you could raise it between you and up to 4 other people, like 5 max. Between you and 4 other people, you could do the deal, right? And where joint venture stops working is when you need to have more people than that to raise the capital. So when you start getting into, like, call it $1 million or more of money you need to raise, you have to go into something that's called syndication. And
Mhm.
that's what Jen was talking about. It's very expensive and it's extremely complex. Anyway, so that's just a little bit of foundation. I forgot where I was going with all of that. Oh, acquisition fee.
Acquisition fee.
Yeah. So in the world of syndication, and Jen and I have been very passionate about, we really want to disrupt the commercial education space, because everybody leads with, yeah, just syndicate. Go, don't worry about getting a small building. Just go for your first 100 units. It's the same amount of work. And it's just such a lie. It's such a lie. It's almost impossible to take down a deal of that size when you're new. And the mistakes you're going to make are going to end up being very, very expensive. But what's alluring about syndication, and why a lot of new investors try to go that route first, is because acquisition fee. So an acquisition fee is a percentage of the purchase price that the operator or the general partner, the person who's like making the deal happen, earns. So for example, we just about a month and a half ago closed on a 48 unit. It wasn't quite $5 million, but let's call it $5 million purchase price.
Yeah.
The acquisition fee on that was $133,000. And that was, between the team, there's a few of us on that team, and we split it, but that's really appealing. Like, oh, I can make $133,000 the day after closing. I want to do that. And so it really lures people in. Like, I don't want to bother making small money when I can go right for the big money. And the challenge is that they'll keep going after that big money and never actually even close anything, because the complexity is very, very high. So what Jen and I ended up doing was combining joint venture, like the smaller deal, but still working in the acquisition fee. So it's going to be, yeah, it's, even
like the 13 unit.
Yeah, like we just did a 13 unit with 20 storage units, and we got a $21,000 acquisition fee on it, on a small little building.
It's not 133 grand, but
no. Well, we did that on the other one.
Pretty good.
But the whole point is, JJ, and for everyone here, if you want to get started in apartment investing and you want to be successful and you want to lay a foundation that's based on concrete instead of sand, start with a small apartment building.
Yeah.
Like the amount that you're going to learn from closing on your first 8-unit, 10-unit building is going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
You learn so much. It's incredible. And then you are in such a great position, right? You close, now you have confidence, you have experience, and you have credibility.
And our approach is it's a stair step for that reason, because when you're doing it that way, for example, we have students that are in our academy because we got so passionate about this shit. We decided to launch an entire academy in 2019. We have students that started off, they didn't have any real estate experience, 0 revenue or 0 portfolio in their real estate portfolio, 0 to now they own $35 million worth of real estate that they own and they can manage. So they have that AUM in 2.5 years. Now they can actually manage it though. That process, what starts off, you go get a 6-unit, or like Brad Bunin. Brad Bunin had like an 11 unit, 2 11 units. He got under contract and closed on 33 units within 4 months. And it was 3 different apartment buildings. And because he did that and he showed that he can close, the lenders were like, oh, you can close on this. This is awesome. You're a performer now. And I know that you're serious. And now the broker started sending him off market deals because they know he's going to close. So he stair stepped his way. And the dude has like 190 doors now last year closed a building and got $190,000 acquisition fee. So he got to syndication because we got him there. But you start with joint venture, stair step into syndication. So yeah, his acquisition fees in the beginning may have only been 20, 35,000 to get there. But within 3 years, he's still taking down those acquisition fees. And he didn't even need a sponsor. In fact, now he's positioned to sponsor other people. So that's why because we got slapped with falling for the same marketing message and trying to go for it, between that and me being, and then her education issues that she had way back in 2003 when she went to her own seminar company to get training, it's just like, we need to do something about it. So for those of you that aren't educated in multifamily and don't know that role, if you're hearing about syndication and thinking about, oh, let me just jump into a 100-unit first deal, that's big. It's a lot to bite off. It's a lot to consider, and you've got to raise a lot of money. And if you don't have a deep bench, we just recommend getting into a 5 to 10 unit first.
Of course,
venture,
yeah.
Build into it, grow into it, and develop.
Brandon Lewis, you are on with Stacy and Jen Conkey. What's your question?
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. How you doing, Brandon?
Good, Brandon. How are you?
I appreciate your time. So I had a question about the acquisition fee. I'm familiar with wholesaling. When you're considering the acquisition fee, when you're acquiring these properties, you still have equitable interest on the back end? Because I'm a little confused.
So,
like, are you basically selling the rights to the property and taking the fee, or are you getting a fee and then you have equitable interest?
Great question.
That is a great question. So the way it works, Brandon, so it's not wholesaling at all, but it has like the benefit of wholesaling of getting like quick. It's not that quick, but quicker cash. But you're actually legitimately buying the property. You're just buying it with other people, whether you're doing a joint venture or a syndication. You are an owner. You're one of the owners of the property, right? The LLC owns the property, and you and your partners own the LLC. And because you brought the deal, and it's not just bringing the deal. It's not like with like, it depends on what level you're wholesaling at, but you're not just bringing the deal. You're negotiating it, you're vetting it, you're doing the due diligence on it, you're getting the funding on it. You're basically taking the deal across the closing table, which is not an easy thing to do when you're getting started. There's a lot to it, right? It's just, as we all learn through real estate. Once you've closed on the deal and you are an owner, and if you built in the acquisition fee, your partners all know about it and they all agreed to it. Once you close and the deal is fully funded, that's when you've earned your acquisition fee. So it's kind of like it's a benefit of wholesaling, except you also get the ownership.
And it's an acquisition fee for putting it all together. Then you're getting the cash flow and the equity as you hold it. And then when you sell it, there's also a disposition fee. So as you add value to that building and increase its net operating income, commercial real estate is valued based on how much of the NOI. So as you increase the NOI, the net operating income, that value then increases. So for example, last year we got an asset. It was a 96 unit. It was $10 million. Now the exit on that, it's going to be valued around 15 million. Well, on the front end, a 3% acquisition fee, was it 3% or 2%? 2% acquisition fee on that 10 mil is about 190 grand. It was actually 9.5 million. Yeah. And then we are going to continue to add to the NOI and increase it. When we go to sell it, we get another 2% disposition fee on the sale of that asset. So you get acquisition fee, disposition fee, plus all the cash flow and the equity when you sell it. So it's not selling the rights and getting like a wholesale fee, but
there's a lot of moving pieces. And I feel like you guys are also responsible for the money, like the private money that's coming in and bringing the partners in. So you're doing a lot more than meets the eye with it. I mean, there's a ton of moving pieces here. So
there is. That's part of the reason, Brandon, that we not even suggest, like in our academy, we're like, tell people like, don't even think about doing a syndication at first. We're not having it, but because there are a lot of moving pieces, which means there's a big learning curve. So when you're starting with something smaller, even a 5 unit, you learn so much. Yeah. And you may or may not build in an acquisition fee. If the deal is if it's too skinny and you can't build it in, then you're just doing it to get the experience and the cash flow. But when you start getting into, you start getting better and better deals, there is room to build that in. And all of that work that you do, that's like that you are really legitimately earning that acquisition fee. It's not easy to take a deal across the table. But the reason it feels like it's so much, Brandon, is because it's a big learning curve. But every time you do a deal, you start making more and more connections. like that first one that maybe it's an 8 unit or a 10 unit, and you go through it and you're like, oh, okay. Okay, I get it. And then the next one you do is maybe a 20 unit or 25 unit. And you already know what you're doing, but you'll learn a few more things or you make a few more distinctions. And then
Yeah.
you do a 35 or a 40 unit. And then after that, you're probably doing a syndication by deal number 4. And you can earn acquisition fees the whole time. It's just when you get into the syndication, the larger deals, the money is much bigger. But now you've set such a good foundation that now you're actually legitimately ready for it. And you can responsibly raise capital knowing you know what you're doing because you've done 3 other apartment deals before you went into that world.
And one of the things, Brandon, because I don't want anyone to get freaked out, like, oh my gosh, that's so much to do. So just let's back it up a little bit because there's a lot to juggle. That's why we say start small on a 5 to 10 unit. Go the full cycle of that deal, know how to acquire it, know how to underwrite it, make the offers, all that stuff, due diligence, close on it, then know how to manage it so that you know and know how to run capital, raising capital. Do it with partners that also have skill sets, right? So we always in our academy teach people do those things, do the first deal all the way through. And then after you've done that, you're going to analyze and assess, well, was I really good at the acquisition side of it? Like reaching out to brokers, getting deal flow, underwriting the deal. Or was I really good at the capital raising side where I have money partners and relationships where I can bring money to the deal? Or do I really like the whole asset management piece? We teach 3 roles in our academy. So it's acquisitions manager, capital raiser, or asset manager. And within those 3 roles, you go through your first deal, doing all 3 of them on a small deal. Identify what's your superpower. What do you like to do? What are you good at? What are you best at? And then go find the other 2 partners that know how to do what you don't want to do, right? And then
Absolutely.
You can stay in your lane and fly faster and you find the team members that make you whole. And now as a threesome, you are going for it and building a skyline. And it doesn't have to be so daunting. It's more organized and strategic. So there's a better way than all of that shiny stuff that might make you feel like, oh my God, I'm never going to do that. Because that's how I felt. That's how we felt.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But if you can organize it in a way and everybody soars with their strengths, you're going to mitigate a lot of risk because nobody's trying to learn stuff or do things that they don't really like to do. That's where mistakes happen.
Do you guys always have an exit and plan besides just holding it? Like, are you always planning on liquidizing the asset?
Oh no! Well, that's
a good question. Yeah.
So when we say the word like exit strategy, sometimes the exit strategy is not to actually exit the property. It really depends on what we're trying to do. So we have a motel that we don't plan on ever selling. It's more of like a lifestyle cash flow asset that we'll just hold forever and hold it in the family. And the 13 unit we just got with our partners, it's very likely we're going to end up just keeping that one forever. But most of the deals that we do, what we're looking for is the opportunity to increase the value of it through improving the net operating income, like increasing the revenues, decreasing expenses. And then when it's worth more, and our usual exit time is on average about 5 years, 5 to 7 years. In 5 years, when we've raised the value and it's time to sell, we can sell doing a 1031 exchange or just sell it outright. And then we can move that profit into a larger building that has more cash flow. So not that you have to, and everybody is different. But for us, we just do both. There's certain assets that we are exiting on purpose because it's going to set us up to roll all that equity into something much bigger. And other ones, we're just like, you know what? It's not going to go up in value that much, but it's a kind of a cash flow cow. And we like that. So we do both. Some people sell everything and some people hold everything, and they're all right. It's just like what's right for you. Like, where are you at in life? What are your goals? And
I like to look at our portfolio based on, it's kind of like a stock portfolio, right? You have those that are safety, you have risk, you treat it the same way. So we have some single family homes. We still have plexes. I think we have 4 plexes still left, 2 single family homes or 3. The rest are
5 plexes, 3 single families. So the rest are
quads. Okay. So we have more than I thought, but we have different asset classes, and we also have a capital company where we raise capital for other asset classes of operators that we know are really good at it. So, we have a guy who we're really good friends with, a colleague that does storage, self-storage units. We'll raise capital for that deal. Or we have another guy who does mobile home parks or RV parks. We'll raise capital from our investors for that deal. And so it's like a full circle when you're looking at my portfolio. If I'm raising for that deal and I have an active role in that deal, then now I also have equity and I own a piece of that deal. So now I've got self-storage units, I've got mobile home parks, RV parks, multifamily. I also have plexes, small residential multifamily, and single family homes. So I've got a diverse portfolio of
Wow.
assets because it just makes sense. Like I want to gobble up single family homes when in times like, where the interest rates are a little bit lower than this though, and then get the equity play so that when I sell them, I can take all of that equity and put it into a larger asset, whether it be multifamily or whether it be a big self-storage. So there's just so many different ways to do it. When you have multiple strategies, that's what I can consider like exit strategies. I'm not just looking at it from one asset. I'm looking at it from our asset list. And how do I look at that asset list and portfolio all year, each year, at least twice a year? How are those markets doing? How are they performing? Should we be thinking about refi? Not right now, right? Or should we be thinking about selling? Probably not right now. So like, I'm going to hold on to stuff, and anything new that I get, we're looking at financing that's like 5 to 7 years because we don't know what's up with interest rates. We had students 3 years ago that they wanted to get into deals and they ended up wanting to do floating rate. And we were like, don't do that. Right. So now that none of them did floating rate, none of our students are facing these issues that people are seeing with their financing. And so now they're poised to go get the right properties. So whenever you hear about exit strategies, just know that there's so many ways to skin this cat, and you want to do it in a way that's most lucrative for you and meets your goals, not just a cookie cutter.
Got it. Okay. I
I
appreciate
hope
you
that
guys.
was helpful. I talked so much.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No, it definitely was. Thank you. Thank you, JJ.
Sure.
Mark Presswood, you are on with Jen and Stacy Conkey. What's your question?
Yo, 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 what's going on? How's it going, ladies? I think I heard
Mark,
a lot
I
about
barely
the
recognize
mindset.
you.
Santa Claus.
Oh
The
my God.
mindset machine, my goodness, it's all you guys are talking about the mindset machine right here for sure, for sure. And Miss Kennedy, that's what she was labeled before.
That was a
Been a
long time
long
ago.
freaking time, girl.
You've known
What's
me for a
up?
long time.
Yeah, that was
Absolutely.
almost
You
a
were,
decade ago.
Yeah.
yep, you were a beast in that group. You did a lot, but I got a big project that I'm trying to pull off a creative like 300K assignment fee out of this thing. So I'm going for the beast. And I was listening to another capital raising thing, and they said just pencil in a due diligence fee for 300K. That'll work really good. What are your thoughts on that?
I've never heard of that.
I
It's
mean,
another workaround, they said.
I guess so.
Could
I don't, I've never heard of it, but
Yeah.
I mean, we had never heard of anyone putting an acquisition fee on a joint venture either.
Right.
We just were like,
Let's just do it.
why don't we just try it? And so yeah, I mean, if it works and it's legal and everything else, then why not?
Outside
Absolutely.
the box.
Yeah, we're
Yep.
working on a big one. So it's because of you guys and the courage you put into the family and everything that we're going for a $10 million project.
That's
So
awesome.
when
Mark.
we get it all put together, we'll celebrate for sure. But,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an apartment on steroids. So,
That's awesome.
but it's good to see you guys, and so happy that you guys made it to JJ's room here and giving everybody value. You guys are freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
We love
Good
you.
to see you.
It's good to see you, man.
Thank you, Mark, for your question. Always good to see you. I got a young man with a question here in the chat. Girls, once you have started JVing, are you able to get paid for wearing all the hats? Or do you recommend trying to get JV partners to split the work and interest with them?
Okay, well, one of the very definition of a joint venture, which is in direct contrast to a syndication, in a joint venture, everybody must have some active role. Whereas in a syndication, only the general partners are active and everyone else is 100% passive. So you actually cannot have a joint venture where you have passive investors, because the Securities and Exchange Commission would look at that and say, you're just running a syndication and calling it a joint venture because you don't want to pay all the fees, and you can't do that. Like you can go to jail for this stuff. So it's really important. Now, that said, it really depends. So every joint venture is a little bit different. In some joint ventures, like if you're the one and you're bringing the deal and you're doing the majority of the work, but you're not bringing any of the capital, and all of your partners are basically, their main role is to bring capital, they still need to have some role in the deal. And it doesn't have to be huge. It could be they do the bookkeeping, or they take the minutes, or they organize, getting the stuff to the CPA at the end of the year. So as far as how should it be structured, it really depends on like, what are the needs? What is everybody contributing? And what is everybody's skill set? But ideally, when you're doing a joint venture, in my opinion, you are going to get the most out of the deal if you are playing an active role, especially when you're new, in as many different areas as possible, because you're going to legitimately learn the most by doing it. But there's no right or wrong as far as how you split things up, as long as everybody has an active role of some kind.
Yep.
I don't know if that was exactly your question, Troy, and if not, you can tweak it a little bit.
Cool. Well, I'm sure that just about covered it. We're going to move on. We got a couple of the questions here. We're hitting a long time, but we're going to get a couple more questions before we wrap out. Jeff McCann, you're on with Jen and Stacy. What's your question?
Hey, ladies, it's good to see you again. I remember doing the wow thing with you ladies. I guess it's been a few years ago now, but it got me started.
That was 4 years ago, Jeff.
Yeah,
4
I know.
years ago.
It's been a while. I've been busy. We had to close down for COVID. But anyway, my question is, well, first off, let me just preface that question. I get a lot of deals sent to me by a lot of brokers because I established a lot of relationships, and my inbox is overflowing. I can't possibly do very many of these deals because I don't have the wherewithal and I don't have the financial backing. But if I found a deal that would work perfect for you, what would it be?
So generally speaking, our buy box right now, based on the economy and where things at, interest rates are, we look for properties that are stabilized with a value add component. So there has to be an opportunity for us to increase the value, but it has to be cash flowing from day one based on current interest rates. The price point isn't really that much of a driver, probably generally between like 3 and 12 million, but it depends. Like we just did a deal that was only 700,000
Right.
of a full 13 unit because it was seller financing and it was great cash flow. But generally speaking, that's what we're looking for. Location wise, we're open, though primarily we found that the deals that work the best for us are in the Midwest. So, but we're pretty open. And if there's a deal like that, Jen and I we're no longer focused on the acquisitions part of our business. We actually have an acquisitions team. But if you find something that's in that, you can forward it to us and we'll forward it to them and they'll do the initial underwriting and see if it's something we're interested in. We're a little bit more on the advising and capital raising side of it. Even though obviously we know how to do the entire thing, we've just found that we have so many relationships with people that it's easiest for us to build relationships and bring people into our deals than to be like trying to pound the pavement looking for a deal. So now we have team members who do that and then also do the asset management.
Kelly Basham, you are on with Jen and Stacy Conkey. What's your question?
Quick question on your acquisition, how you're doing those. Are you putting the offer in underneath one LLC and then at closing acquiring your acquisition fee and closing underneath another LLC?
It's really has nothing to do with the acquisition fee. So just so you know, like that the acquisition fee has nothing to do with that but yes, but here's why. Unrelated to the acquisition fee. When we're putting the property under contract initially, we really have no idea whether that property is going to make it through due diligence, right? So the last thing we want to do is set up a brand new LLC for, 123 Main Street when it's, can fall out of due diligence. Once it's past the due diligence phase and we know we're going to close on it, we will start a new LLC for that property. But none of that has anything to do with the acquisition fee.
Okay. All right.
It's like the acquisition fee would go to Kelly. So it's like Kelly and, JJ and Jeff and Mark are the owners of, 123 Main Street through their joint through the LLC. But Kelly is the one who brought the deal and is earning the acquisition fee, or Kelly's other LLC. That would just be defined in the operating agreement, like who's being paid that thing. But that has nothing to do with switching it. That is more about, you don't want to set up LLCs that you end up not using. So we just wait until we know we're going to close, get the LLC set up, and then we close within that. And title will update. In commercial, it's super common. It's probably every deal is like that in commercial, really. But the lenders are expecting it. The brokers are expecting it. The title company is expecting it. Unlike with single family, that anytime we would do that, it would throw everyone into the biggest tizzy ever. Like, what? We're changing it. We're like, oh my gosh. Okay.
It just made me laugh. I just remembered what every time we make a new LLC, we get a binder shipped to us from Anderson Advisors, and every time it comes, our son will go, our oldest son, he goes, "Did we get another apartment building?" As he hands me the box, and we're like, "Yeah, we get to go put this binder in a cabinet somewhere. It's going to be great. We've got more. We're going to need an apartment building or a self-storage unit for all the LLC binders. It's crazy. I don't know." And she gets to do all that.
I hate it too.
That's a good problem. That's a good problem to have.
So, well, you guys have dropped some serious skill nuggets. I'm going to definitely be following up with you. Um, I'm building a big house right now. A lot of my assets are going into that. We'll talk. Is it something I have to wait on, or can I do it now? These kind of things. Um, um, but the two last things I have to ask you, if people want to connect with you, whether it's people on the call or people on YouTube world out there, weeks and months down the line, people want to follow up with you. What's the best way? Is it your MySpace page or your TikTok, or what's the best way to reach you?
MySpace still around?
I got to look up and see if my MySpace page is still there. It's probably pretty comical. I think the best way is just hit us up on Facebook. It's just Jen Conkey, Facebook, or Stacy Rose Conkey. The warriorsofwealth.com website, where we curated a playlist of all the videos, our free trainings that you can kind of go through and see our blueprint. You can just send us a friend request.
So no, that's fantastic. Now you two have obviously got quite a machine working there. You have a proven track record. We have a number of people on the call that have come just to hear you speak. And so, you've got a lot of credibility out in the world out there, as well as within my group currently. It's just been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I think the people on the call will be watching the recording later on YouTube, as well as people watching it. And of course, you'll have access to that as well for your webpage or anything you might want to have. I've got one last question for you. I have a networking group, and I'm not talking about short sales or private money or multifamily. I'm just talking about networking, the importance of building relationships. Every education group out there has a Facebook page for their community of investors. And they have brand new inexperienced investors coming every day and brand new experienced investors coming every day to these Facebook communities where we're all ideally learning about real estate. And as I like to say, 95 to 97% of the people that are in these communities really aren't actively using social media network. What is the importance of using social media, particularly Facebook, and networking to the success of someone's business? And what's the benefit or the importance of joining a networking group like mine to the success of an investor?
Yeah, I'm going to let Stacy answer the social media marketing piece, just because we have an entire course on the importance of that and how to do it. Because if you're not branded as an investor, no matter if it's multifamily, single family, whatever it might be, if you don't brand yourself that way, nobody's going to know. And then you don't have the credibility, you don't have the online presence for it. It's very important, and it's something that we talk about all the time. And joining networks and masterminds, I'll tell you a quick story. 2021, it was November of 2021. We decided, we went to UPW. We had tickets that fell in our lap to go see Tony again. She had been talking to me about how in 2003, all the things. And then I had found out that she walked on fire, and that had been on my bucket list. I want to do the fire walk with Tony. What the hell? So she found tickets and we went. And I swear to God, we went, I walked on fire. The next day I showed up. Tony's on the stage. He's telling this story. And I'm like, this is amazing. We ended up enrolling into Tony's Platinum Partnership Network. It was $150,000. I'm not going to lie to you. My card, I shook as I handed my Amex over, the big, thick silver one that only has $100,000 limit on it. I was like, this one's not going to work for the full amount, but I'll get you more cards. Can I have a payment plan? Enrolled into that. And I'll tell you, it changed our lives. It 10x'd everything. It literally, there was a $10 million asset that I did not know how to acquire. And I literally was afraid to do it because of all the bad things that I had heard, right? I had proximity to one of these other platinum partners. who's making 8-figure decisions made my 7-figure decisions look like easy peasy button street. Like, oh yeah, that's easy. And he said, listen, you need to talk to so-and-so. So I was talking to her and she said, these are all the things you need to do. Ask A, B, and C question, go see X, Y, and Z person, and then call me back and let me know how it went. So I did all the things. 3 days later, I called her. She was like, cool, go do this right here and this right here. And if that checks out, move forward. So I did it. And I got into that $10 million asset, which I would not have done had I not been in proximity. So that $150,000 investment, that one asset increased my net worth like 10x the investment that I made. Because by the way, that 150,000 was just for the attendance and tuition. We had another $100,000 that went to all of the trips, the travel, the airfare, the events. So we spent $250,000 on that one mastermind, and 10x that investment. $2.5 million is what we saw as a return of it. So my advice to anybody that will listen, I am the mindset maven, as Mark is over here talking about. You get in what you put in. You know, don't have a negative relationship with money. Spend to get an ROI and receive with an ROI. Your return on investment is everything in life. So when you are forking out money, don't be a consumer that's just out there trying to get the best rims and the best car and the best, all those things that do status. Like, buy an asset that pays for something in your life. Buy an asset for every bill you have in your life. And then once you have that, buy assets that give you the vacations you want in life. When you fork out money with the expectancy of, what am I going to get for it though? What's the return on the investment? That's the same relationship you need to have with money in multifamily. So to me, being in proximity to a mastermind, a network around people who are doing what you want to be doing, do it. Get in as fast as you can. It's a no-brainer decision. Figure out what the return on the investment is for you and dive in. Don't just dip your toe in. Don't just dip the toe, plunge. Go for it. Rip the Band-Aid off.
Excellent.
That's my take.
Excellent suggestion. Yeah, we really want to thank the both of you for coming on today. Wealth of knowledge, just gold nuggets falling from the sky. I've learned quite a bit. And what I've really learned is I want to get to know the both of you better and try and emulate, duplicate, follow in your footsteps, and just honor you by learning and implementing what you guys have done to be successful. Again, we talk about the key to being successful is, who are we surrounding ourselves with, guys? All of you that are on the call right now, who are we surrounding ourselves with? As I say all the time, chase a relationship, don't chase the deal, because by getting to know people, you'll realize all these people you really want to get to know and work with and deal with. And, Jen and Stacy are definitely two people that I want to get to know and work with and do deals with. So we're very, very blessed to have you on the call today. Hey, if you guys are watching on YouTube right now, please like Stacy and Jen's video, like their presentation. Please feel free to put in the comments what your takeaways were, or how we can do better, how I can do better, just to provide you, better quality, better product on a week-to-week basis. Again, if you want to get with the girls, it's warriorsofwealth.com. You go there and scroll down and, fill out the area there with your information. If you want to get in touch with me, go to my website, jjazizian.com, hit the click little pulsating register now button, register for my group. You'll be invited to all my future calls. And, just for everybody out there, build your relationships, surround yourself with successful people, raise your own bar. And as you do that, you're going to find that you're hitting higher and higher plateaus than you ever knew you could do before. Jen, Stacy, I thank you so very much for jumping on with us today. Again, don't go away, because we're going to do some breakout rooms. But thank you so much for joining us. For those of you on the call, do not go away. If you guys have been watching us out there in YouTube land, internet, all that kind of stuff, the virtual world, please follow the girls on social media, follow myself. And Jen, Stacy, we'll see them all down the road, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, JJ. We'll see you in June.
Yeah, we'll see you in June at your barbecue.
Awesome. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us.